Welcome to Breaking Frontiers. Imagine this. You're sitting with someone you trust, sharing your deepest thoughts, your biggest dreams, your private struggles, and before you know it, that very same information is used against you. Ever been there? We all have. In 2025, the world is changing faster than ever, and what you share can either build you up or break you down. Today, I'm going to reveal 7 things you should never share with anyone, no matter how close they are. These aren't just secrets, they are your power. And when you protect your power, you protect your peace. So stay with me, because by the end of this speech, you'll see how keeping certain things private will make your life stronger, happier, and more successful. When you set a goal, when you truly decide that something matters to you, it becomes a part of your identity. It's no longer just an idea floating around. It's a fundamental piece of who you are and where you're going. But here's the problem. The moment you start talking about that goal to others, you begin to dilute its power. Why? Because your brain gets tricked. Psychological studies show that when you announce your ambitions too early, your mind releases a small dose of dopamine, the very same chemical that makes you feel rewarded after accomplishing something. But here's the catch. You haven't actually done anything yet. Your brain just thinks you have. And that false sense of achievement can be dangerous. It can rob you of the urgency, the drive, the hunger to actually get up and make it happen. People don't realize how fragile motivation really is. It's not something you can just summon at will. It's built through momentum. Every step forward, no matter how small, reinforces the belief that you're capable of achieving more. But when you share your goals too soon, you let the air out of your own tires. You take that momentum away before it even begins. You see, the world isn't just made up of well-wishers who want to see you succeed. It's full of doubters, skeptics, even people who love you but project their own fears onto your ambitions. You say, "I'm going to start a business," and suddenly you hear, "Are you sure? What if it doesn't work?" You say, "I'm going to lose 30 pounds," and someone laughs. You've said that before. And it doesn't even have to be negative. Even if people support you, their praise can be a problem. If they celebrate you before you've actually succeeded, you might start to believe you've already won. But nothing has changed. You're still in the exact same place, except now you have less urgency to move forward. Because deep down, you already got the pat on the back, you already felt the high of recognition, and your brain sees no reason to fight for more. This is why the most successful people don't announce their goals to the world. They move in silence. They keep their plans to themselves until they've built something worth showing. They understand that talking about success is easy. Doing the work is what matters. If you want to lose weight, don't tell people. Start eating better. Start moving. Let the results speak for themselves. If you want to write a book, don't announce it on social media. Sit down and write every single day. Let the book exist before you let the world know about it. And beyond just psychology, there's something spiritual about this too. Your goals, your ambitions, these things are sacred. They are raw, unformed potential. They're a piece of your very soul trying to take shape in the real world. When you expose them too soon, you invite interference. You let in doubt, distraction, even envy. Not everyone who listens to your dreams will want to see them fulfilled. Some will cheer for you, yes, but others, sometimes even the people closest to you, might not. And that's not necessarily because they're bad people. It's because your growth challenges them. When you change, it forces the people around you to confront their own limitations. If you succeed, they have to ask themselves why they haven't, and that's uncomfortable. It's much easier for them to keep you the same than it is to watch you rise. And if you're not careful, their doubts can become your own. Suddenly, you're second-guessing yourself. You're wondering if you should take that risk, if you should push forward. And just like that, the dream dies before it ever had a chance to live. You need to protect your ambitions the way you would protect a flame in the wind. In the beginning, when it's just a spark, it's fragile. The slightest breeze, one comment, one doubt, one sideways glance can snuff it out. But if you guard it, if you keep it close and feed it with quiet, consistent action, it grows, and eventually that little spark becomes a fire so strong that no amount of outside wind can put it out. That's the kind of determination you need. That's the kind of discipline success demands. You don't owe the world an explanation for what you're building. You don't need their validation before you take action. You need to believe in the vision before there's evidence, before there's proof, before there's applause. Because once you do that, once you've built something real, then you don't have to say anything. The results will speak for themselves. People think that sharing their fears and weaknesses is a form of connection, a way to bond with others, to be understood. And in the right context, with the right person, it can be. But the truth is, most of the time, when you expose your vulnerabilities too freely, you're handing over the very tools that can be used to break you. Because not everyone who listens to your struggles wants to see you overcome them. Some people collect information about you the way a predator studies its prey, watching, learning, waiting for the moment you're at your weakest to strike. Now, that's a dark way of looking at it, but it's also a realistic one. Human beings are complicated creatures. They're not just kind or cruel, supportive or destructive. They're both, sometimes at the same time, sometimes without even realizing it. And when you reveal your deepest fears to the wrong person, you risk becoming a character in their story rather than the author of your own. You risk becoming the subject of gossip, the cautionary tale, the entertainment for those who would rather watch someone struggle than work on themselves. And it's not just malice you have to watch out for, it's also incompetence. Most people aren't equipped to handle the weight of someone else's fears. You tell them what you're afraid of, what keeps you up at night, and they don't know what to do with that information. So they do what's easiest. They react, they project, they offer unhelpful advice, or worse, they make it about them. They turn your vulnerability into their own burden, their own source of discomfort, and suddenly, instead of support, you're met with their fears, their anxieties, their limitations, disguised as concern. You scared of failing? Well, maybe you should be. I knew someone who tried that and lost everything. You're worried about being alone? Yeah, that's a tough one. Maybe you just have to accept it. You're afraid of putting yourself out there? Well, not everyone is meant to be successful. They think they're helping. They think they're being honest, practical, maybe even wise. But really, all they're doing is reinforcing your fear, feeding it, making it stronger. And before you know it, you start second-guessing yourself. You start thinking, maybe they're right. Maybe I shouldn't take that risk. Maybe I should just stay where I am. And just like that, the dream dies. Not because it wasn't possible, not because you weren't capable, but because you let someone else's limitations become your own. The other danger in exposing your weaknesses is that it changes the way people see you. People want to believe in strength. They want to follow those who seem sure of themselves. It's not that they don't care about your struggles. It's that on a fundamental level, they're looking for something solid to hold on to. When you reveal too much, when you allow your fears to dominate the conversation, you shift from being a source of inspiration to a source of pity. And pity is a dangerous place to be. It creates a power imbalance. It places you in a position where people start treating you as weak, as incapable, as someone who needs to be saved, rather than someone who is in control of their own life. That's not to say you should bottle everything up. That's not to say you should pretend to be invincible, to walk around with a mask of false confidence. That's just another kind of weakness, one that cracks under pressure, one that collapses the moment it's tested. No, real strength comes from knowing who to trust and when to open up. It comes from choosing carefully, from recognizing that not every ear that listens is a safe place to rest your burdens. You need to build a fortress around your mind, a stronghold where your fears and weaknesses exist, yes, but where they don't define you. You can acknowledge them, understand them, work through them, but you don't let just anyone inside those walls. Only those who have earned that right, who have proven themselves to be allies, who have shown through their actions, not just their words, that they want to see you win. Because those people do exist. There are those who will hold your fears with care, who will remind you of your strength rather than reinforce your doubts. But they are rare. They are not the norm. And until you find them, until you are sure of who they are, you must protect yourself. You must move through the world with wisdom, with caution, with the understanding that not everyone deserves access to the most fragile parts of who you are. And when you do that, when you learn to guard your vulnerabilities with the same care that you guard your dreams, something incredible happens. You become stronger, not just in the eyes of others, but in your own. You start relying less on external validation and more on your own inner resilience. You start seeing yourself not as a victim of your fears, but as someone capable of overcoming them. And that shift, that quiet, powerful shift, is what separates those who talk about change from those who actually make it happen. Relationships are fragile. They're living things built over time, nurtured by trust, respect, and shared experience. And yet, people treat them like public property, throwing their problems out into the open, exposing the most intimate details of their lives to the opinions, judgments, and interference of people who have no business being involved. They think they're venting. They think they're seeking advice. But what they're really doing most of the time is weakening the very foundation of their relationship. When you tell others about the struggles in your relationship, you're not just sharing facts. You're shaping a narrative, and narratives are powerful. They don't just describe reality, they create it. The moment you start speaking negatively about your partner to friends, family, or even strangers on social media, you alter the way you see them. You reinforce their flaws in your own mind, turning a temporary frustration into a permanent character flaw, a passing argument into a fundamental incompatibility. And once you frame them in that light, it becomes harder to see anything else. And it's not just you. Everyone who hears your complaints is also forming their own version of the story. They don't see the full picture. They don't experience the love, the laughter, the quiet moments of connection. They only see the problem, the dysfunction, the weakness, and they remember it long after you've moved on, long after you and your partner have apologized, healed, and grown. The people you confided in will still be holding on to the image you gave them. They'll remind you of it. They'll bring it up subtly or directly, reinforcing the negativity long after it should have faded. And then there's the fact that most people don't actually want to help you fix your relationship. Not really. They want to be entertained. They want something to gossip about, a story to tell, a drama to watch unfold. Even those with the best intentions can do damage. They project their own experiences, their own biases, their own pain onto your situation. They tell you what they would do, what they think is right, based on their lives, their failures, their wounds. But your relationship is not their relationship. Your struggles are not their struggles. There is no wisdom in inviting the world into your most private conflicts. There is no strength in turning the sacred into the public. A relationship is between two people, not an audience. And the more people you invite in, the more fragile it becomes. Every outside voice is another thread pulling at the fabric, another force testing its strength. And eventually, even the strongest bonds can fray under the weight of too many opinions, too much interference. Of course, there are exceptions. Abuse, neglect, deep betrayal. These are things that do require outside help. But that's not what most people are talking about when they share their relationship problems. Most people are complaining about annoyances, frustrations, the ordinary struggles that come with building a life with another flawed human being. And in doing so, they take something that could have been solved privately through communication, patience, and understanding, and they turn it into something much harder to repair. Because when you air out your problems, you don't just change the way others see your partner, you change the way your partner sees you. No one wants to be with someone who exposes their weaknesses to the world. No one wants to feel like their most vulnerable moments are subject to public scrutiny. Trust is built on the understanding that what happens between two people stays between them. And the moment that trust is broken, even in small ways, something shifts. Resentment grows. Distance forms. The relationship weakens. Instead of turning to outsiders, turn inward. Learn how to communicate directly. Learn how to sit in discomfort, to have difficult conversations, to listen and be heard without needing an audience. When something bothers you, bring it to your partner first, not to your friend, not to your sibling, not to the faceless masses online. Because if you want to build something real, something that lasts, you have to protect it. You have to respect it. And respect isn't just about the big things. It's about the little things, the words you choose, the way you frame your struggles, the discretion you exercise. Every time you choose to handle something privately rather than publicly, you reinforce the strength of your relationship. You build resilience. You create a space where trust can grow, where intimacy can deepen, where love isn't just something you perform for others, but something real, something sacred, something that belongs only to the two of you. Money is one of the most powerful forces in human relationships. It dictates how people see you, how they treat you, and even how they measure your worth. And yet, people are careless with it, not just in how they spend it, but in how they talk about it. They treat their financial situation like a casual topic of conversation, discussing their earnings, their debts, their struggles, their wins, as if the world around them isn't listening, as if that information doesn't shape the way others perceive them. But it does. It always does. If you tell people you're struggling financially, they'll see you as weak, as unstable, as someone who isn't in control of their own life. And the world does not reward weakness, it exploits it. You'll find that the more you talk about your financial difficulties, the more people start treating you like a liability. Opportunities that might have come your way start disappearing because people assume you're desperate, and desperate people make poor decisions. They assume you're unreliable. They assume you're looking for a handout. Even if you're not, even if you just wanted to be honest about your situation, it doesn't matter, because once people form that perception, it sticks. On the other hand, if you talk too much about your financial success, you invite a different kind of problem. Suddenly, people start expecting things from you. They start assuming you have more than enough, that you should help, that you owe them something. Friends, family members, acquaintances. Some will celebrate you, but many will start looking at you as a resource rather than a person. They'll ask for favors, for loans, for small financial help that they promise to pay back but often never do. And if you say no, if you set boundaries, you'll see how quickly admiration turns to resentment. People don't just see money as a number. They see it as a measure of fairness, of justice. If you have more than them, they might feel it's unfair. Even if you worked for it, even if you sacrificed for it, they'll start making judgments. They don't deserve that much. Why won't they share? They think they're better than us now. It's subtle at first, but it grows. And before you know it, you're defending yourself for the success you earned just because others don't like how it makes them feel about their own situation. And then there's the real danger, the kind that goes beyond reputation, beyond perception. When people know too much about your finances, you make yourself vulnerable to those who would take advantage of you. Scammers, manipulators, opportunists. They're always looking for someone who's either struggling enough to be desperate or successful enough to be exploited. If they know your weaknesses, they can craft the perfect lie, the perfect opportunity, the perfect emotional appeal to separate you from your money. It happens every day. And it happens most often to the people who talk too much, who make their financial state public knowledge, who forget that privacy is power.money is not just currency. It's leverage. It's freedom. It's a tool that allows you to navigate the world on your own terms. And the moment you give others insight into how much of it you have or don't have, you give them the ability to control you. You let them shape the way they interact with you, the way they treat you, based on something that should have never been their business in the first place. The wisest people in the world understand this. That's why the truly wealthy don't flaunt their success. They don't feel the need to prove themselves with extravagant displays. They move quietly. They make their money work for them instead of using it as a means to impress others. Because they know that the moment you start using wealth for validation, you've already lost control of it. You're no longer using money, it's using you. And on the other end of the spectrum, those who struggle financially but keep it to themselves, they too understand something important. They know that the world doesn't owe them sympathy, that announcing their hardships won't fix them, that complaining about money doesn't make it appear. Instead of talking, they act. They find solutions. They work in silence, making small, disciplined decisions that compound over time until one day they no longer have to worry. And they do it without letting the world know, without inviting unnecessary opinions, without making themselves a target for either pity or resentment. Because that's the key. Money is personal. It's not a topic for casual discussion. It's not something to broadcast to the world. It's something to be managed with intention, with discretion, with the understanding that the less people know, the more control you have. And control when it comes to your financial future is everything. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever shared something and regretted it? Let's build a strong, empowered community right here. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this video if it spoke to you, and don't forget to subscribe, because together we rise.